Good afternoon, producer Susan. What have you been up to today?
Hello, Jersey Joe. I actually just came back, donated blood.
You donated blood. You got your bandage on. So
Still got my bandage on
how
for
many
one
times?
hour.
How many times this year have you donated blood?
Let's see, June. So probably 3 times
What
because you
every
can
every
donate every
every
other
six
month.
every 60 days? Oh, very
Every
good.
56 days.
Every 56 days. Well, great for you.
Yeah. Did
All
you have a
right.
good Father's Day weekend?
I did. Got to see my daughter. Got to see my mother. So I had a great Father's Day weekend. How about you? You get to see your dad?
Yes, I did. And my grandmother's 95th birthday.
Oh my goodness. Well, fantastic. That's not many people make it that long. I'm delighted you got to see her. Well,
Yeah.
fantastic. All right. Well, I'll tell you what, we got as usual, very full schedule today. Today is Tuesday, June 20th, and tomorrow, which is the day that we will, uh, we will post this, will be June 21st. And what is June 21st?
Tomorrow is the summer solstice.
That's right, the longest day of the year. So when we post this tomorrow, we will be posting it on the summer solstice, longest day of the year. And so the next big celestial event that occurs will be what?
The autumnal, the vernal equinox.
Equinox, right? When the day and night hours are exactly the same. All right. For those just joining us, it's the Situation with Jerzee Joe. The focus of the show is news and perspective you won't hear on TV. We try to throw a bunch of stuff in. Last week we told you who you can thank for charcoal, which was Henry Ford. Um, anyway, so let's go down the rundown what we're going to talk about. Remember last week our quote of the week was from Thomas Sowell. Well,
Mhm.
guess what? Our quote of the week this week is also from Thomas Sowell, except this one's about the futility of trying to use facts to explain things to people who are reveling in their perceived moral superiority. And the stupidest thing I've heard all week, we'll tell you about a New Jersey government agency that levied a 266,000 fine against an organization for cutting down some trees. We'll play a 30-second clip of I don't know if you remember the old black and white TV show Mayberry RFD with Andy Griffith as Sheriff Andy Taylor and Opie, who was
Yeah,
Ron.
I mean, a little before my time, but I'm familiar with it.
And we all know who Ron Howard, the producer, is, right? But
Yep.
he actually got his start in show business as Andy's son Opie. And in this little 30-second clip,
See, I remember him from Happy Days. That's
that's right,
my generation.
Happy Days. Anyway, Sheriff Taylor explains why you can't let children make important life-changing decisions all by themselves. Um, we'll tell you, I don't know if you heard, but very, very briefly, there was a news story about 3 so-called mass shootings that occurred over the Juneteenth weekend that disappeared from the news cycle in less than 24 hours. Did you even see it the first time?
I did not. The only news I heard this weekend was that submarine disappearing.
Well, if you blinked, you missed it. There were 3 on Monday. There were 3 mass shootings over in the festival, this and that. And I'll tell you why that story about 3 mass shootings in 48 hours disappeared in less than 24 hours. We'll tell you about 20 IRS agents showing up at a Montana sporting goods store and what they took during their visit there. We'll tell you about the latest development in the rapidly dying city of San Francisco and what additional businesses have announced they are closing. Just since we talked about this remember last week we talked about the 2 biggest hotels in downtown,
Yeah.
just are banning them and just said, bank, you can keep the hotels. Well, we've got another one, actually 2 more joining the list. In putting things in perspective, we will remind you about how much Trump had asked for to build the U.S.-Mexico barrier wall, and now how much cities are requesting in federal aid just to care for the illegal immigrants who have been flooding into their cities. So we'll compare those 2 numbers. And of course, we can't let this week go by without commenting on the sweetheart deal that was offered to Hunter Biden with regard to his 2 admitted instances of tax evasion and lying on the ATF background check form when he purchased a gun, which made him in possession of a legal handgun. Our taxpayer relief shot is from Houston, where a homeowner confronts 2 armed car thieves in his backyard at 3 o'clock in the morning. So you think we can fit it in?
I know you're going to do your best.
All right. So here we go. Quote of the week from Thomas Sowell. And here he goes. It is usually futile to try and talk facts to people who are enjoying a sense of moral superiority in their ignorance. Have you ever met somebody like that? They are so sure, they're a crusader, whether they're a
Mhm.
climate activist or whatever, and they are so sure of their facts that they feel the sense of moral superiority. And when you try to give them facts that, well, you try to tell, well, that's not exactly true, and so here's some facts and science, they don't want to hear it, and they'll begin to denigrate you. Ever deal with anybody like that?
Yeah, unfortunately, and they just
Uh,
will not listen to reason, and they will not agree to disagree either.
yeah, and they have this sense of moral superiority, and you're immoral if you don't agree with them. You're immoral, and you're making up fake. You're making up fake news and to try to contradict what they're telling you. And I run into that, several times a week because, as I mentioned, I spend a little time on liberal websites in the morning, and you try to post something. Somebody will post something, a claim, and I'll say that's not true. And here's data like, oh, we got a third of the people in this country working for minimum wage. And I think we've talked about this. According to the US Bureau of Labor Statistics, the number is less than 2%. And you try to tell them that less than 2% of the people in this country work for minimum wage. No, you're lying. You're making that up. Or the same thing with how many people are working multiple jobs. You know what percentage of this people in this country work more than one job?
I'm gonna say it's a fair number of people are working at least 2 jobs,
Well, believe it or
whether it's
not,
even just a side hustle.
well, side hustles are one thing, and some people actually prefer to work two part-time jobs instead of one full-time job. But the people who work a full-time job plus another regular job is less than 6%.
Mm.
But you try to tell them that, and they'll accuse you of all different stuff. Making up stuff, and then you give them the link to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, and they'll say, "Well, that's old, that's out of date." No, that's from 3 months ago. Anyway, should we move on to Sheriff Taylor?
Yeah.
All right. So a friend of his, apparently his son Opie has to make a decision, there's a decision has to be made, and his little boy Opie, who's like 11, wants to make it. And here's Sheriff Taylor explaining to his friend why he's not going to let Opie make that decision. Here we go.
Let him decide.
Oh, hang on. Stop playing. I'm going to back it up and hit the play button a second time. Here we go.
Why not let him decide? No, I'm afraid it don't work that way. You can't let a young'un decide for himself. He'll grab at the first flashy thing with shiny ribbons on it. Then when he finds out there's a hook in it, it's too late. Wrong ideas come packaged with so much glitter, it's hard to convince him that other things might be better in the long run. All a parent can do is say, wait, trust me. Try to keep temptation away.
Well, that was of course, a metaphor for a fish hook, right? First shiny thing with a hook in it, with a ribbon and a hook in it. That was a metaphor to a fishing lure. But I don't know if you heard the story over the weekend about some girl who was suing a hospital and a doctor because when she was 13, she began to undergo gender reassignment, and she underwent a double mastectomy. And now she's suing the hospital and the doctor for performing that double mastectomy. Did you hear that story?
No, I didn't hear that story, but I feel like it's not ethical for them to be doing it on children that young.
Well, I agree. But she said when she was 13, I want this. I want to be a boy. I want to have a mastectomy. And with her parents, and their parents signed all the release forms. And now, even though this is something she wanted desperately at age 13, now she's suing both the doctor and the hospital for malpractice, for agreeing to do what she begged them to do. So anybody wants to look that up, just Google 13-year-old girl sues hospital for performing mastectomy.
And exactly why it shouldn't be done at that age.
Right. And again, and that's Sheriff Taylor. We can't let children make permanent life-changing decisions like that. In fact, I'm going to play that one more time. I think that was such great stuff. I'm going to play it one more time if I can. Can I play it again?
Why not let him decide? No, I'm afraid it don't work that way. You can't let a young'un decide for himself. He'll grab at the first flashy thing with shiny ribbons on it. Then when he finds out there's a hook in it, it's too late. Wrong ideas come packaged with so much glitter, it's hard to convince him that other things might be better in the long run. All a a parent can do is say, wait, trust me. Temptation.
Best advice. All a parent can do is say, wait and trust me. All right. Moving right along. So you didn't hear about him at all. Well, I woke up Monday morning and there were 3 mass shootings. There were a music festival in Chicago and some other place and blah, blah. And they're talking about 10 people were shot at this one and 9 people were shot here and 6 people were shot here. And they were reporting them as a consolidated story. Like, isn't it awful? We had 3 mass shootings in 24 hours. And then all of a sudden, boom, you didn't hear about them. By 6 a.m., they were all in the 6 a.m. news. By 6 p.m. news, they were gone. You know why they were gone?
Let me take a guess. Were they gang related?
Well, it was they were all at Juneteenth festivals, primarily African American attendees, multiple teenage shooters with handguns. Now, had it been a single white man with an AR-15, I guarantee you'd be hearing about that story 2 or 3 days later. But in all 3 cases, it was multiple African American teenagers shooting at each other with handguns. And the story, I never saw a story evaporate so quickly in my entire life as that one did. I think between the 3 events, there were like 26 people got shot between those 3 events, and it just, boom, evaporated. I don't know, any thoughts on how the news media treats different shootings differently?
It's definitely it's almost like, what's the word for opposite racism?
Well, certainly there's bias there in terms of what is deemed
for
news.
sure.
Yeah, certainly a white guy with an AR-15 gets a lot of coverage. By the way, in some cases, I think they said they had 5 different shooters, and they were all teenagers. 5 teenager shooters at a Juneteenth concert celebration. Anyway, all right. So in Montana, last week in a sporting goods store, 20 armed IRS agents showed up at the Highwood Creek Outfitters sporting goods store in Great Falls, Montana, and armed with a search warrant, demanded that the store owner turn over every completed ATF background check form 4473 that the store had on file. Now, first of all, I have 2 questions. Well, actually, I have 3. First of all, why does the IRS need guns?
They don't.
I mean, if you ever had a situation where you thought just call the U.S.
right?
Well, you just call a U.S. Marshal and say, hey, can you have a U.S. Marshal meet me here? Or can you have 2 U.S. Marshals meet me here?
Yeah.
And so not 1, not 2, not 5, 20 armed IRS agents show up and walk into the Highland Creek Outfitters sporting goods stores. And then they ask for the background check form 4473, which has no financial information on it. It's just a bunch of questions. Ever used illegal drugs? Ever been convicted? Are you currently under restraining order? You're a citizen of this country. Have you ever been dishonorably discharged? It's just background check questions. Has nothing to do with financial. There's no financial information. Why does the IRS need or want background check forms? What does it have to do with taxes?
Yeah, what is their reason?
Who knows? And why did they need 20 armed agents just to fulfill what is basically a simple records request? I have no idea. If you have any thoughts, please let me know, or any of our listeners. But again, just Google Highwood Creek Outfitters, Great Falls, Montana, IRS agents.
I'd be curious to hear the explanations to those questions, though.
Well, one of the state representatives is demanding an explanation. He hasn't gotten one yet. It's Representative Rosendale is actually demanding an explanation, and I hope he gets one because I'd really like to know. So, all right, San Francisco. Last week we spent some time. We talked about the 2 big hotels, where the owners of the hotel, same owner, 2 hotels, basically said to the bank, we give up, screw it. We're not going to make any more mortgage payments. You can have they literally just walked away from a 1,900 room hotel, which was the San Francisco Hilton, and the Park 55, which was a 1,200 room Hilton. And they basically said, nah, we give up. They're tell the bank, keep them, they're yours. Now, in the interim, which is just 7 days ago, the owner of the Westfield Downtown Shopping Center, better known as the Downtown San Francisco Center, spelled CENTRE, which was the showpiece. It was the biggest shopping mall in San Francisco. It was the centerpiece. They had over 200 stores in that mall. So what happens on Friday? The owner of the mall told its bank, "We give up, you can have it." And the owner of the entire shopping mall walked away from the shopping mall. 2 days later, the Cinemark movie theater complex, which was in the mall, sent an email to its customers announcing its final films would play on Thursday and the complex would close forever on Friday. In a statement, the Standard, Cinemark confirmed the decision to permanently close the Century San Francisco Center 9 and XD Theater shortly before the conclusion of its lease term, attributing the shutdown to a comprehensive review of local business conditions. The area surrounding the shopping center has been increasingly troubled. Cinemark theaters are accessible via a set of elevators in the Westfield Mall, where, ready, human waste has been found regularly, according to mall employees. In the San Francisco Center, which was this Center Showplace Mall, nearly half of the storefronts and eateries that were open in 2020 have since permanently closed. This news is yet another major blow to San Francisco's Union Square shopping district overall, and the imminent Cinemark closure adds a 24th major shutdown in the area since the start of the pandemic, including the recent announcement of Old Navy, which will close on July 1. Now, remember, we've talked about Whole Foods gave up on their flagship store after 13 months. Walgreens, 2 Nordstroms, the 2 hotels. Now the owner of the shopping malls walked away, and the theater in the shopping mall says we give up as well. I mean, if that city, the city is probably on life support now, and I don't know if it can even be saved. Any thoughts on whether or not San Francisco can be saved?
No, it's sad because it's such an amazing city, and it's just going to hell in a handbasket.
Yeah, I've never seen a city talk about what's the word in terms of accelerating the speed at which that city is going into. It took Baltimore 20 years to get where San Francisco is getting in 2 years. It's just incredible the rate at which San Francisco is disintegrating before our eyes. All right. So remember when Trump was first elected and he asked Congress for money to build the border wall? Remember how much he needed to build the border wall?
I believe it was 5 billion.
Yep, 5 billion. And that estimate, by the way, had been validated. They looked at how much per foot and whatnot. 5 billion would have built the wall. Well, the wall obviously didn't get built, and migrants, you've seen the videos of the migrants just literally wading across the river, right?
Yeah.
Walk across. Now the mayor of just one city, in this case, New York, wants $4 billion just to cover the cost of housing and feeding illegal immigrants in his city in just this year. This $4 billion for one city this year. Other cities like Chicago and Los Angeles are making similar requests. So because Congress didn't give Trump his $5 billion, now obviously there still would have been some illegal immigration, but you wouldn't have had literally hundreds of people a day just walking across the river if you had the wall, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not saying you could ever have zero illegal immigration, but I think since Biden took office, we've had 6.6 million illegal immigrants enter this country, and the vast majority have just literally walked across the border. And did we talk about what Texas did with the boys with their floating barrier?
Yeah, down the Rio Grande to prevent people from trying to swim across. Yeah.
He put these big 6-foot buoys in the water, and you can't swim under them because there's a net on them. You can't climb over them. And
Yeah, because I was curious to know, how is that affecting any of the wildlife or marine life?
Well, again, the fish can go through the net, and you can swim on either side. So, but apparently it's stopping. It's stopping there and at least funneling it to points where you can, if you can funnel those attempted infiltrations, at least you can meet them there where they're coming across. All right, we cannot end this without talking about the Hunter Biden plea deal. So, by his own admission, yes, he did not declare over $1 million of income 2 years in a row, and that's tax evasion. when you know you had the income and you don't declare it, that's a crime. That's tax evasion. It's a felony. And given the fact that the amount of taxes he was evading each year was in excess, well in excess of $100,000 each year, those were serious felonies. Well, the U.S. Department of Justice has given him a plea bargain down to misdemeanors. And then on the felony gun possession charge, which also, it was actually two, it was felony gun possession because he obtained the gun illegally. And then he also committed perjury by lying on his ATF background check form. You know what diversionary probation is?
No.
Diversionary probation is typically something you do like to a first-time drug offender. The judge will say, okay, producer Sue, they caught you with, some heroin in your pocket. That's a crime, but it's your first offense. And tell you what, we'll put you in diversionary probation, and if you don't do anything wrong in the next 12 months, we'll dismiss the charge. In other words, it's attempt to divert you from a life of crime and save you from going through life with a felony conviction on your record. Because if you have a felony conviction on your record, it can really screw up your life. I don't know how you're aware of the ramifications of a felony conviction, but that's where diversionary probation is typically used. In the case of Hunter Biden, totally inappropriate to offer him diversionary probation, given his other crimes that he admitted to, and the fact that he knowingly committed perjury when he signed that form, and then was in illegal possession of a gun, that they gave him diversionary probation on that felony gun charge. That's not even a slap on the wrist. That's more like a kiss on the cheek. So talk about a two-tier justice system. You think anybody else would have gotten that deal if his name didn't?
Oh no, anybody else, the average citizen would be doing jail time, prison time, since it was felony.
Right. And somebody else reminded me of something one of our listeners wrote in. They also found child pornography on his laptop. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Yes, they have found, and there's documented that there was child pornography on Hunter Biden's, the laptop. You remember the Dugars? I never watched the show. You remember the Dugars?
Yeah, I've never watched the show, but I've seen the commercials. I'm familiar with their story.
Well, apparently the guy in the Dugar, or whatever his name was, they found him with some child porn on his computer or phone. He got 12 years for child porn. They haven't even charged Hunter Biden with child pornography. So you got to wonder how come this guy Dugar got 12 years and Hunter Biden hasn't even been charged. Anyway, how much time we got?
You got a solid 10 minutes.
All right, we're going to finish a little early today. So we're going to move on to our taxpayer relief shot. And
oh, wow.
So there were other stuff that I could have talked about, including our Secretary of Energy, by the way, who testified under oath that she didn't own any stock in certain companies. And then somebody did some investigation and came out. And then she admitted that, yes, I guess I do own stock in those companies. In fact, let me see if I can pull that story up. I got 10 minutes. I was actually cutting stuff out. And let's see if I can. Oh, I didn't talk about who fined the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection.
Oh, yes, that's a good one. Let's talk about that, because that's absurd.
All right, so the New Jersey Department of Environmental found out that somebody cut down some trees without a permit on some New Jersey state forest land. They're called game land, state forest land. So they levied a fine of $266,000 against this offending group. The only issue, the group that did it was the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection. The New Jersey Fish and Wildlife is a division of the Department of Environmental Protection. So the group that cut these trees down was the Department of Environmental Protection, Fish and Wildlife Division. So the Department of Environmental Protection fined itself $266,000. Can you think of anything more stupid than that?
Yeah, finding yourself and then paying yourself the fine.
Paying yourself the fine. I mean, normally it should just be a reprimand to whoever the guy in charge of that was, like, hey, Bob,
Yeah.
You broke the law, don't do it again, and maybe we're gonna, suspend you without pay for a month or something. But to fine your own division, it's basically you're writing a check to yourself. Because I don't believe the New Jersey Fish and Wildlife has their own checking account. So the check would have to come from the Department of Environmental Protection, made payable to the Department of Environmental Protection. So that's the stupidest thing I've heard all week. All right. Anyway, we call them taxpayer relief shots because when a good guy or a good woman with a gun shoots and kills a thug, it saves the taxpayers the cost of a jury trial. And of course, if the thug gets convicted, it's 75 to 80,000 a year to go to jail. So 10 years in jail is $750,000. Of course, while you're in jail, you get free food, free medical care, free clothing, and then once you get out of jail, you're typically on parole. So there's probation. You have to check in with the probation officer. So you send a thug for jail for 10 years, it's $1 million. So we call them taxpayer relief shots because when the thug winds up dead in a justifiable shooting, it saves the taxpayers money. And if we want to know, who that, we have a sheriff out of Santa Rosa County, Florida. I'll let him tell you what he thinks of it. Here we go.
Somebody's breaking in your house, you're more than welcome to shoot them in Santa Rosa County. We prefer that you do, actually. Hopefully you'll save the taxpayers money.
And he's not the only one. As producer Sue, we got another sheriff down there in Polk County. His name is Sheriff Jerzee Joe, and he's got a couple of things to say. And here's one of what Sheriff Judd has to say.
But we have received information in social media that some of the criminals were going to take their criminal conduct into the neighborhoods. I would tell them, if you value your life, you probably shouldn't do that in Polk County, because the people of Polk County like guns. They have guns. I encourage them to own guns, and they're going to be in their homes tonight with their guns loaded. And if you try to break into their homes to steal, to set fires, I'm highly recommending they blow you back out of the house with their guns.
I love that, blow you back out of the house with your guns, but he's got one more thing he likes to say. Here you go.
I would highly suggest that if a looter breaks into your home, comes into your home while you're there to steal stuff, that you take your gun and you shoot him. You shoot him so that he looks like grated cheese.
All right. So you've heard that all before. So we're going to go to Houston now. 3 o'clock in the morning, something wakes a guy up and he looks inside and he sees two guys in his fenced yard. So he goes out to see what the hell's going on. And like a smart individual does, if you're going to go confront two guys in your yard at 3 o'clock in the morning, I wouldn't go out there unarmed, would you?
No, absolutely not.
So he goes out. Now, we've already talked, you cannot use deadly force to prevent property theft. If you look out your window, somebody's stealing your car, you can't run out and shoot them to stop them from stealing your car. You can only shoot them if you are in fear of your life or serious bodily injury. But if they pull a gun on you, at that point, you are justified in shooting. So here's what happened.
One of those shootings happened on Woodway near Fondren in West Houston. A resident surveillance camera captured the moment after the shooting when a man collapsed from his gunshot wounds and first responders arrived to help. Investigators confirmed that an accused attempted burglar died after being shot multiple times. They tell us the homeowner told those suspects to leave. He said they pulled out a gun, so he pulled out his and opened fire.
The other suspect, he must have left with the gun because we can't find the other weapon, and he did leave on foot. We got some decent video that we're working with.
The camera just shows a gentleman coming from there, going straight up there. He went up the fence, he went up the stairs and he collapsed. He tried getting up again and he collapsed.
Police confirm the homeowner was shot in the leg, but is expected to survive. He's cooperating with police as they investigate this now as a deadly situation. Authorities are looking for the other suspect, and they're determining whether or not that homeowner will face any charges. 7 hours, Houston police responded to severing.
Well, clearly he won't, because of the mere fact that he was shot in the leg is proof that those guys were armed and that, serious bodily injury. I mean, if you're on the, if they charged him, which I think they'd be crazy to charge him, would you call that justified self-defense?
Yes.
Yep. I mean, clearly, so you have two guys in your yard with guns. All right. Producer Sue, anything you want to add?
Yeah, any thoughts on this Ocean Gate Ocean Gate sub missing? They still can't find it.
Yeah, they've got, I think till sometime on Thursday to find it before it runs out of oxygen. But
Yeah.
you know, apparently the sub, it's not a sub, it's a submersible. It's not really a submarine.
Yeah.
And apparently it had the ability to auto surface. Apparently all they had to do was push a button or pull a lever and it would have popped up to the surface, and they've been searching the surface. So I suspect something may have happened on board that disabled the crew or disabled the craft, because had the craft been functional and the crew have been conscious, you would have think they would have pulled the lever to get it to the surface. You know, I think a couple of weeks ago we had that jet, remember, that went through the Washington airspace and
Yes.
crashed whenever, you know, and again that the pilot, probably became victim hypoxia, lost pressurization.
Well, the area where it's lost, so it's lost. Those not familiar, it was going down to see the Titanic, and the Titanic, where the Titanic is actually a very vast debris field of bits and pieces from the Titanic. The Titanic was massive, and
Yep.
it's quite possible that it's tangled up in some of this debris and can't resurface. So it's a bit concerning, one, that they can't find this vessel, and two, when they do find it, are they going to be able to
Untangle
get
it
loose?
if it's
Yeah,
tangled.
untangle it.
But the fact that they should have had texting communication capability, and the fact that the
Which they
texting,
don't. Yeah.
so the fact that there's been no texting communication leads me towards either the crew has become incapacitated and unconscious, or maybe there was a catastrophic failure and it flooded. I just don't hold much hope at this point. Because if it was just tangled, you would think they would still be getting text communication. But anyway,
I don't know. I hope the best, but it's a bit concerning.
it is, and we'll know by this time next week. I hope we know by this time. Like, hopefully it's a good outcome, but I'm not optimistic. Anyway, I want to thank all of you who listened to this podcast for giving up 30 minutes out of your busy day to listen to me ramble on about the things that I find of interest. Hope you found those topics as interesting as I did. And if so, hope you continue to listen to this podcast in the weeks and months to come. If you want to see some of the materials and story links you heard me talk about today, you can find them on the Jerzee Joe Show website at jerziejoe.com, with Jerzee being spelled J-E-R as in Roger, Z as in zebra, E-E, Jerzee, Jerzee Joe. So if you want to email me with a comment, question, or suggested show topic, do that by just sending me an email to joe@jerziejoe.com. And with that, I've got nothing else. Susan, producer Susan, anything else?
Nope. I hope you have a good summer solstice. Enjoy the what is it, 15 or 16 hours? Probably almost closer to 18 hours.
You know, I think, daylight till 9 o'clock tonight.
Depending on where you are in the northern hemisphere.
Sure.
15 hours and 4 minutes of daylight.
Oh my goodness. All right. I'm going to enjoy it tomorrow night. All right, producer Sue, talk to you next week.
All right.
Bye-bye.